everybody, and welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast. Hey, as you've known, because you looked at the title, this is a bonus episode. It's my opportunity to give each and every one of you out there better insight to some of the things that are happening within the hospitality spectrum. All the products and services and all the things that really make our wonderful business work. And one of the issues that I see as the biggest challenge of all is dealing with guest Wi-Fi and bandwidth issues. It's an era of everybody's on it all the time, and we want more and more. And I know, listen, as a customer of hotels, I get really annoyed when that bandwidth and the Wi-Fi is not working in a way that is not just like I have at home, but a lot of times even better, because guess what? I want my entertainment. I want my life to go the way I want it to go, and I don't want a hotel dictating how I'm supposed to have the experience through Wi-Fi. So I'm talking today with Fred Reeder. He's the Chief Commercial and Operating Officer with Nomadics, a company that's really focusing on those trends that are in the internet bandwidth and guest Wi-Fi. Fred, how are you, sir?
I'm well, and Glenn, thanks for having me on. Really enjoy it, and certainly a topic that we're very familiar with. So, let's happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, all right. So let's set the stage, Fred. Where are we? Because the way I see it is, man, we have all become so crazy dependent on that internet today, and it's really just, to me, a utility like water or power.
You're absolutely correct. I've been saying that for many years, and I just had a conversation with one of our partners. Can you imagine going into a hotel and the hotel telling you that if you want to turn on the TV, that you need to shut off some of the lights because there's not enough electricity coming into the property?
That's a really great way to put it.
And so in the same way, internet is no longer an amenity or a nice to have; it's a must have. And so when we talk to the brands, when we talk to the hotel owners, when we talk to the service providers, some of the things that we tell them that they have to do, just like when an architect designs a property, they specify very high quality pipes. They specify very high quality wiring for the electricity.
That's true.
You really want to make sure that you have a solid base infrastructure for your internet.
Right. And speaking of architects, Fred, one architect I'm not a fan of, Mike Brady. I don't think he really knows how to design a house. 6 kids, 2 bedrooms, no toilet. I don't know what was going on with this guy, but hopefully that the engineers and designers that you're working with creating great, strong Wi-Fi networks have a little bit more sense.
They do. And one of the trends that we've seen is, it used to be very fractured in the industry. So one of the trends that we've seen is that the hotel brands are starting to set standards and requiring the service providers to adhere to these standards. But more than that, they're also vetting the service providers. So, the likes of Marriott, the Hiltons, the Hyatts, and so on, they're requiring their service providers to go through a certification process so they can actually prove that they can deliver a certain minimum quality of internet. Now, again, these standards are based on delivering a minimum quality of internet, but I think you hit it on the head at the beginning of the conversation. Guests that go into hotels these days want that home experience, and today the home experience is better oftentimes than you find in hotels. And so one of the things that you want to take a look at as a hotel owner or as a brand is how can you cost effectively create that unique experience, that home experience, or better, that guests may look for, that gets them coming back to the hotel, because that's ultimately what it's about.
Right. That's absolutely correct. Of course it's correct, because you're the pro. You're really teaching me here today. But the fact is, for all the hoteliers out there, you need to stop thinking about it as just me, the business traveler, coming into your hotel, because I'm not necessarily there alone in my room. And if I am with my family, we're talking about me, my spouse, and my twin children, all wanting to be on the internet at exactly the same time. So what made a lot of sense a few years ago no longer does, which is why working with a company such as Nomadics, who offers gateways for seamless wired and wireless connectivity solutions across public access networks, is such a great idea to kind of engage in. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing out there that hoteliers can leverage to be more successful in making sure their customers are happy when it comes to the world of wireless?
Right. You again, you mentioned it very accurately. When you and your family and your kids go, in the old days, the average measure used to be about 2.5 to 3 devices per room. That's no longer the case. If you have a family traveling, you could easily have 9 devices in the room.
I mean, I have that 2.5 to 3 devices on my own. Think of it this way, right? And
exactly.
Again, you know this. I've got my cell phone, my mobile phone, which I want to connect to the wireless network. I have my iPad, and I have my laptop, and God knows what other types of stuff that I'm going to start carrying around as this Internet of Things continues to take off.
Absolutely true. And so it's not just the number of devices that has increased; it's the type of use of the internet that has changed, continues to change. You're seeing more and more over-the-top services, the Netflixes, the Hulus, and the Amazon streaming consumption. You see more gaming as some of these game consoles that are portable become more powerful. They demand more bandwidth. The trend of group online games, all are.
Yeah, that's a really good one because I know my kids are always playing on the PC games, and Nintendo is coming out with a product called Switch this March, and that's basically a home console that you can take parts of it with you on the go, and I'm sure you're going to need to connect through the internet on that bad boy too.
If you think back at the end of last year when nobody expected it, but Pokemon Go really took off,
yes.
The bandwidth consumption in hotels just skyrocketed, and those are trends that we oftentimes don't anticipate. So it becomes very important that when you lay down an infrastructure that you look, 3-5 years ahead, and build in a buffer, because there are things like the Pokemon Go trend. Who knows what comes down the pipe? You have to anticipate those and allow a little bit of headroom so that you can accommodate those up and coming trends.
And if you have a lack of talent for predictions like I do, make your best guess and then double it. It would be my guess the way things are going.
And not a bad idea. Absolutely not a bad idea. Now, one of the things that hotels grapple with is how do you do it cost effectively? Right. Because it's easy for cost to spiral out of control if you go overboard in the way you design it.
Yeah, that's right, Fred. Because the way I see it is that this is where we have a lot of trouble. The guest wants what the guest wants, and the hotel brand is demanding that the owners of the properties, because we are in a world where most properties in the hospitality industry are franchised and owned by different management groups, owners, developers, that sort of thing. They're the ones stuck paying the bill. And as our consumption goes off, it becomes more and more expensive. So the need to try to maximize the savings becomes ever more increasing issue of importance. Please take it away.
Yeah, spot on. And so one of the things that we recommend is to take a look at doing, application management, application control through a layer 7 implementation of the network.
That sounds good, but I have no idea what that means. What do you mean by application management and all?
Yeah, so that was a little bit of techie talk there.
I know. I'm not really good at techie talk. I respond really well to like shiny lights, but words sometimes confuse me.
The base concept of what that really means is that you can take a look at different and monitor and see what different applications are being used on the network. So you can see if somebody's using Netflix, you can see if somebody's using Hulu, you can see if somebody's using a gaming application or just email, or maybe it's a phone call, Skype, or some other voice application. Mm-hmm. And you can then assign a different priority to those applications so that the amount of bandwidth that's assigned to a different application is not the same. Because, if there's a delay in getting information to email, you don't really notice it. So you can put that at a lower priority. But if you're watching a TV and the information's delayed, the picture on the screen will absolutely be horrible. It will be pixelated and the quality goes. And so in order to maintain the quality, because ultimately it is about the quality, in order to maintain the quality of the different applications, you can assign a different priority to the use of the internet and the network itself so that it optimizes the quality for that application.
Fascinating.
And what that allows the owner to do is they don't have to just load up on bandwidth availability because you're optimizing the bandwidth that you use. I'll give you an example. A year ago, my water bill went sky high, so I was bringing in more water to my house, not realizing that one of my sprinklers had a leak.
Right.
So it's easy for you to waste the amount of bandwidth that comes in, and pay a lot more than you really need to. But through optimization, it really allows you to consume the maximum amount of the bandwidth that you're paying for. And it may certainly be something that initially may be daunting from a cost perspective, but it pays for itself in a matter of months.
That's not something that I even thought of. So it's not just about having a robust internet to make everybody happy. It's using the allocated bandwidth in a right way to maximize your savings and keep those prices as low as possible.
Spot on. That's exactly right. And it's something that we do in other areas as well, but certainly in the internet space, it's oftentimes overlooked. So great opportunity to improve the quality without having those costs spiral out of control. Now, another area that this application control is used for is in controlling peer-to-peer applications like BitTorrent.
Right.
As you know, those kind of applications can really consume a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, I would say, what about now that I could download from Netflix? I'm going to be taking that flight, leaving the hotel, coming home across country. I'm going to want to download a bunch of stuff.
Exactly. And so, the way Netflix works, as an example, and the BitTorrent works the same, is they try to grab as much bandwidth as they can. And if you don't manage that, what will happen is the guy downloading a BitTorrent movie or a Netflix movie, they will hog all the bandwidth, and the rest of the guests are starved for the bandwidth that they normally would have had. So actually doing that kind of control so that you have a fair sharing of the bandwidth among all the guests.
And that's important. And maybe there's another example that we could use as well. It's nothing better than using the internet at noon, but 8 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, when everybody comes back and is doing something, then it becomes a problem sometimes.
Yeah, we call that the internet rush hour, right. At hotels.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. And that's those high demand time periods. You really want to make sure that you have a fair sharing of the bandwidth, but also that if you have a differentiation in your guests, if you have, high loyalty guests or somebody who's paying a premium for the penthouse, you may want to have the ability to allocate prioritized access or more bandwidth to those folks.
Right.
And those are things that, certainly can be automated. We work on that, but it can be automated if you design the network properly. I do want to go back on the peer-to-peer issue, because one of the things that you oftentimes run into with the content providers and the movie studios is this illegal downloading of movies, which is this BitTorrent.
Yeah, which is kind of why I wanted to use the Netflix example. But but if you want to talk about this, go for it. Let me hear what you have to say.
Well, it certainly is a big issue that hotels face, and there are a number of hotels that we know of that have received threatening letters from the lawyers of these movie studios because they've been traced and tracked that there are illegal movie downloads going on. And so oftentimes what the hotels do is they just block all peer-to-peer applications in an effort to control this illegal downloading through BitTorrent applications, as an example.
Right.
The problem that you run into if you just do it, and there many service providers who do an all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have basic capabilities, so they block all peer-to-peer applications. The problem that you run into is these days, there's a huge initiative at a number of the brands like Starwood and Marriott now, and others, to make their hotels Chinese friendly or Asian friendly, because there's a huge influx of travel. As the economy improves in those countries, you get a larger middle class. You have way more travelers from those countries coming to the rest of the world.
Right.
And the issue, especially in China as an example, there are a lot of legitimate peer-to-peer applications, right? WeChat is a good example, but there are a number of other enterprise-grade peer-to-peer applications. And if you do a global block of peer-to-peer applications, you disable those applications as well. And so, I like to say you have to make your hotels Chinese-friendly as well, but it really goes across many of the Asian countries. And that means you need the granularity to be able to selectively block peer-to-peer applications.
Yeah,
not a global block.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of when I was in China and I was trying to outfox the system to get onto Facebook, just to tell people I was in China, not to share communist secrets or anything like that. So it's interesting how you could block off certain things and not block off other things. So it can be done. But one of the issues that I have is privacy concerns, for example. Say I'm up in my room late at night and I'm not in Moldova. I'm in my room, and I'm wanting to write all these great fake news pieces to destroy the world out there. But I don't want people to know about it. So how do I keep my data private when I'm in hotels? Because quite frankly, that's really a big concern. I feel like anybody can just tap into my information at any time.
Right. So there are a number of ways that you have to. There's no question you need to have your firewalls. You need to have your security software on your device. But the network, the architects and the network can be designed to help enhance that. So, as an example, one of the things that we do is to add a layer of security, because security software is typically designed to keep intruders outside of a network. But in a public network, you're purposely letting strangers inside your network. So just like if you remember that old horror movie where the babysitter is getting these phone calls asking her if she's checked the children lately, and finally the police tells her, hey, we've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. The guy's already inside the house. In a public network, the perpetrator may already be inside your network, and oftentimes you may not be aware of that. Sometimes people have a device that's infected with a virus, and they're not aware of it. And one of the first things a virus does is, who else can I go and infect?
Right.
And so we've added a layer of security that monitors and tracks when a user is looking and scanning the network and trying to infect others. So that's an added layer of security. But there's no question that you need to, one of the things we recommend is for people, when you architect a network, to create VLANs for each room, so that a guest in another room can't see the guest next door's systems and information.
I get that a lot, Fred. Like, it'll tell me, see Jones' iPod collection, that kind of stuff.
And that means, it becomes extremely important that the network gets architected so that you are segmented and you do have that protection from your neighbor's system. But it becomes even more important because a lot of the hotels are looking to create what they call private area networks, and those private area networks are designed for the user, the guest, to actually have that home experience. So if they bring a game console, that they can share that private network in the room, with their brother or sister and play a game, or if you want to cast from your device to the TV, that it happens over that private area network, but that the neighbors in the hotel don't actually get to participate in the content that flows on your network.
Wow.
So VLANs is one piece of that, and there's some other ways that you can do that, and that becomes very critical to take a good look at those capabilities.
Sounds to me awfully interesting, but awfully confusing at the same time. If I was a hotelier, I would just say, hey, Fred, just take it away. You do what you need to do. Just make sure I'm safe, my customers are safe, and everybody's happy. All at a reasonable price, of course. Any other big trends or pieces of information that you think are really important for all of us to learn about today?
Well, we certainly do think that the use is going to increase, but one of the things that we are monitoring is the change in user application. Sorry, not user application, but user interface.
Right.
It used to be the keyboard, and then the mouse came along, and today we see things like Siri and Amazon Echo. Alexa, yes. Really taking off, and I can certainly envision walking into a hotel room and just speaking what you want. Turn my room to 72 degrees. Please turn on the TV
like
to CNN so I can monitor the latest news, or saying, hey, turn on the football game at 5 o'clock. And I certainly can see that. I know there are a couple of proof of concepts that are going on at a few select hotels, but I think that's one of the trends that we're certainly seeing that probably could take off in the next couple of years.
Oh, I would argue that it's going to totally take off in the next few years as that becomes more commonplace. So many people are using the Alexa product, for example, in their homes right now. It's natural to think that a few years after that, it'll be predominant in the hospitality business. If not just in the 4- and 5-star market, then definitely at some point working its way down.
It will work its way down, and again, you as we said earlier, it is about creating that home experience, and as people use it more, not just at the home, but in their cars as well. Now you have even stricter laws about hands-free and voice control, and so people are becoming conditioned to actually use voice as an interface, and
yes.
I think it will find its way in the hospitality space.
And I wish I had that more, Fred, because in just 2 days from the time we're recording this, I've got to go deal with a 2-year-old ticket where the cops accused me of looking at my phone. And let me tell you something, New York City police people. I was not doing that. I just got a notification saying there's traffic, and I looked down. That does not mean that I was using it. I'm hands-free, and I know that's where we're going. Sorry, I just need to get that off my chest there, Fred.
You hit on the other trend earlier as well. I think the Internet of Things is growing as well, and the exciting thing about the Internet of Things is it does tie into this voice interface, because that allows you to control your environment and really customize the experience. And as hotels do that, I think they'll win over guests more and more if they have that capability.
Right.
The other piece from behind the scenes, I think that is important, is analytics. So when I think about analytics, I think of analytics in two ways. One is sort of business intelligence, where you can do analytics on sort of what's happened, and then you also have analytics that is predictive analytics. Mm-hmm. And as you look at, I saw a study last year that looked at the return on investment of doing analytics. And if you do the business intelligence type of analytics, they had a phenomenal return of about 80%.
Wow.
But if you do predictive analytics, the opportunity for the service provider is to have a return of over 200%. Crazy numbers.
That is crazy.
Absolutely crazy numbers. So I'll give you an example of predictive analytics, right? We did a proof of concept a number of years ago with one of our close associates who's a chief analytics officer as part of our organization, and they anonymously monitored a database with a year's worth of data of travelers, and when I say anonymous, it couldn't identify specific guests, but it could identify devices. And what we looked at is where does a particular device show up over the course of a year. So you can see travel patterns. And one of the things that came out of it is And because the data was across brands, it wasn't specific to a particular brand. It was very valuable. It's something that a lot of the brands want. They want cross-brand data, but they're not willing to give up their own private, loyalty data for fear of the competition learning too much.
Yes.
So. But what was interesting was you could see if guests were really loyal. Does a particular device show up at Hyatt across the globe? Does a particular device show up at Marriott across the globe? So it sort of helps you see that. But the real kicker was it allows you to pick a destination. And in our case, what we did is we picked Dubai as a starting point. And so we looked at all the devices in Dubai. And then we looked at where does every device that we've tracked in Dubai, where does it show up next? And so what it does is it gives you a percentage likelihood of the next destination of travelers in Dubai. And much to our surprise, there was a 60% likelihood that the next destination from Dubai, which was the highest likelihood, would show up in Beijing.
Ooh.
And completely unexpected. That was completely unexpected. But can you imagine a brand's marketing department getting a hold of this? Because it allows them then to allocate and really target advertising. It allows them to target how they customize the services for their group of hotels in the next destination. And there are all kinds of other informational golden nuggets that you can capture from what normally is just data. Analytics really is about taking data and extracting information out of it that really benefits and allows you to customize the experience and optimize your profits and revenue. So, great example there of one of the trends that we see coming down the line as well.
Fascinating. So what we're really learning here, and to sum this all up, is you don't need to just have good internet service. It has to be fast, it has to be flexible, it has to be expandable for the future. And not only that, but it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. It could wind up making you money if you're able to use those data analytics in the end to better operate your business and learn cross-brand where all of those customers are going. Really fascinating. Anything else that you would like to add, Fred? And then I'm going to have you do some shameless plugs.
Couldn't have said it better. Great summary. Really appreciate the time with you. And look, we continue to invest. We're so vested in the hospitality space. For us, we work in partnership across the ownership, across the brand, across the service provider, and ultimately for us, the focus is the guest, and because that's who it really is about. And if we can convince the guest that they need our products and our solutions at Nomadics. And of course, we have to make sure that what we do is relevant. And in all the years that we've done it, we continue to be successful. We continue to be the most reliable, the most innovative, the most flexible. I think it creates a success for the entire ecosystem in the hospitality sector. It's been fun over these years. We see a lot of exciting things happening in the years ahead. And yeah, thanks again for having me on.
For sure. And make sure you reach out to Nomadics. That's Nomadix. You could find them online at nomadix.com. And of course, you could just give them a ring if you'd like to. What's the phone number that they could find everybody at?
818-597-1500.
Beautiful. Well, I want to thank you, Fred, for being here.
818-597-1500.
Oh, say that. Wait, I think I talked over you. Say it one more time so everybody could hear.
818-597-1500.
That's right. That's 818-597-1500. And be sure you contact Nomadics and make your internet better, faster, stronger. All right, I didn't make that up. That's a Daft Punk song. But you know what? I'm desperate to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Fred, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody for listening today, and we'll be back real soon with another episode of the No Vacancy Podcast. Thanks for listening. That is unless I do decide to go off to Moldavia and start writing fake news full-time, as opposed to what I just do now, which is part-time. Thanks for listening. Take care.